Hello everybody, I'm Jonathan. Welcome to this video series, Modeling and 3D Printing for Architectural Design, Volume ArchiCAD. In this opening playlist, in this opening chapter, we are going to be looking at how to model a sketch in ArchiCAD, going from absolute beginner, if you just downloaded ArchiCAD for the first time, all the way to having an actual model that you can show in 3D print. Going through the easiest way from everything in between. Now this first video is going to be about how to navigate and what's the user interface of ArchiCAD in general. For this, we provided the actual end file of this tutorial. So we're going to look at what the end of this tutorial it's going to be looking like, and it's an excellent way for me to explain more or less everything that you're going to see in this ArchiCAD program. The next video, we're going to explain how to download and how to achieve this workflow so that it looks exactly the same in your computer. So for now, just sit back and try to listen a little bit about where everything is and what are we going to be looking at in ArchiCAD. Let's get to it. So this is a test file that we provided. We see here the end product of what we just modeled at the end of this tutorial. That's based on a sketch model. So let's follow here the script. So basically in ArchiCAD you have different tabs where you can see a 3D, you can see a worksheet, you can see in a floor plan or sections. There's many ways of looking at it, of what are we looking at the model that's inside the computer. On the left side we have everything that we can create. If you want to create an object, a model, a roof, a wall, for example here, I click on the wall, I just pick any wall and I can just start modeling anything, or maybe a roof, there it is, or maybe an object, whatever object I have there. So it's basically you can create from here, you can create into the 3D space in everything that's below design. Inside documents, you see they're a little bit grayed out because these are polygons and lines, 2D. Those are 2D lines that we cannot see in the 3D model. And we can also start putting in curtain walls and lamps and whatnot. So basically, important thing to know is that on the left side we can create elements. Now each element has a huge list of settings, things that you can tweak, you can change, everything that has to do with how it looks like in the section, what does it look like in the 3D model, what's its geometrical parameters, or you can go way deep into the rabbit hole all the way down to bin. So all I want to say is that there's a lot of settings going to any kind of element. So what we do here is that we have on the top, we have this bar that looks static, but it's not. You can always scroll left, and there's even more things you can change. Like for example, what's the building material, or you can change the buildings, or what is it going to look like in 2D? Is it going to look like this or like that or like that? What's the offset of this? Let's put 2 meters here so that you see the difference. What's the offset of the blue line? Like there's all sorts of things you can change here. Like for example, maybe it's 30 degrees, or what does it look like in plan, the outlines, the cover field. Like there's a lot. So mostly we're going to be working with favorites, where basically what I did was set up some kind of like a shape, and then you can set these elements up in a specific way, and then you can double click here and access them directly, or you can follow the exact explanations on how to get there. But basically what we're doing is we're tweaking settings. Now there's two ways of looking at these settings, either here in this bar on top, or going to the actual settings window of every element. And this is that little icon that you can always find here, or go straight to it, clicking on Command T. So if you go into this, it's just an example. It looks completely different depending on what you have selected. This is the roof selection settings, and here you have basically the same that we saw before. We have it here. If I click on the morph, you're going to see that settings window for you, since the first time you see ArchiCAD, it looks a little bit the same, but I promise you it is not. Like these settings windows are basically full with these tabs. If you want to be able to navigate them better, it's always a good idea to close them all at the beginning so that you can visualize everything that's available here before you start moving things around. For example, under model, you can change the surface to a, I don't know, let's call it parquet. Okay, and then the material has changed, basically. So basically you can change things. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm just telling you what things are so that you get a sense of what's going on. So that is the settings that's happening up here. Then up here we have general things that we can do, use or not use. For example, this we use a lot, which is find and select. It pops up a window on the right side and it selects elements under specific criteria. I close it. You can pick parameters. You have here the snap buttons that you can turn on or off. The help of the cursor, it's also very useful. Grid I never use. This I never use. There's the tape measure and all sorts of things that we may or may not use depending on where we are. There's one particularly cool tool here that's called the 3D cutaway. If I activate it, you're going to see there's scissors popping up in my 3D window, which are actually cutaway planes that I can just go to inspect the model and click finalize and you can see them. All right, we can turn that off or turn it on and say delete all cutting plane. Then in my workflow that you're going to do in the next video, I also have selections, layer setting selections. For example, it turns off all the layers. It has layer manipulation. It helps you isolate and lock and unlock layers in a very intuitive way. So that's that. That's the top of the here. Then we have, of course, the menus up here. There's all sorts of more in-depth tools that we can use. They're not, if they're not on an icon, it means that we use them less. So every time we need here, I'm going to tell you go to the menu, for example, menu edit, move, drag, for example, and then we can find more things that we can do that we're going to need throughout the process. So let's keep moving to the right side. On the right side, we have here actually 1, 2, 3, 4 different things. Okay, this is something. These are the quick settings for the views. We're going to explain them in depth. This is actually a very important window palette, which is trace and reference. It's what we use to trace a sketch into a 3D piece. So that's why I set it up here for you. These ones are the favorites. The BFABs, you have the favorites from ArchiCAD. And the BFABs are the ones that I have prepared for you. So you can follow this whole course all the way to the facade. Certain things are being pre-done for you. For example, there's if you double click here on the 3D print tree, these are trees that I developed that you can 3D print straight away. And then of course there's the most important part of ArchiCAD, which is the navigator. This is the navigator. It's, as the name says, it helps you navigate everything that's been modeled into the file. So for example, the first thing you need to know about this is that there are 4 tabs inside of this palette. You have the project map, the view map, the layout, and the export. So we're going to be working a lot with the first 2, and the layout we're also going to be seeing every time we need to print out what we've been working on. But basically it's important for you to understand the difference between the project map and the view map. Now in the project map, basically everything, the layers are turned on or off depending on where we are. And here we're basically, there's no change into the visibility of the layers if we move around. But here we can always go to the different realms of the project. For example, we have here, we can go to the ground floor. So we see the top view of what's going on. Notice that the tab also changed. And actually we were here before in this tab, 3D window, ground floor. But you see that if I take I can either put another tree or take the roof and delete it. And if I go back to the 3D window, it's gone because it's basically the same model. We're just looking at it from different angles. If you come from other 3D modeling programs, some of them have a different layer where you can see all of the sides at the same time. In ArchiCAD, you work by tabs. You have the tab of the ground floor, the 3D window, and even an elevation. Let's see what you can see there. Oh, look, there's even a section that's being drawn without our knowledge. Like for example, let's select, for example, this weird one that we did a parquet on it. And if we go back to the 3D window, that one's going to be gone. And if I go Command Z to undo it, it's going to pop it right back. And then you can see it again. So this is a way to navigate all this. There's also what ArchiCAD calls the worksheets. And these are basically a very uncomplicated place in ArchiCAD where it's just basically just a piece of paper. So if you double click on it, this is exactly where we imported and scaled our sketch that we're going to look at the next video. Now, as you can see, if it's off or on, everything, if you see it, if you're looking at it here, it's because the layer is turned on. For example, this one has structural bearing as a layer, and this one has 3D print trees as a layer. So if I keep moving around on this side, on the ground floor or on the generic perspective, the tree is always going to be there because there is no change in visibilities or whatnot, which is the main difference with the view map. For example, now if for the rendering that I want to create now, I just want to keep the morphs. I'm going to shift and the trees. So if I go to this quick layer view, I'm going to click on hide other layers that are not selected. So it's going to turn off everything else. And then I'm going to save this view as I'm looking at it now by clicking here, saved current view, and just accept to have an idea. So basically we have a generic perspective. Now what happens? If I go back to the top, if I go over in the project map and double click on ground floor, it's going to show me just that. And here maybe I go crazy and I say let's turn on everything again. Select all, turn everything on, and now there's all sorts of things popping up. If I stay on the project map and go to the 3D view, I'm going to see everything again. Everything is turned on again. And then the view map is about saving a view that is always going to be that way, so that you start having control on what you see. That is why it's very important to save views every time we need them, or at least during the course every time I say it. If we double click on the save view that we did before, notice that it's blue. It's going to look exactly the same as it did before, and even if I move the camera around and double click it, it's going to go snap right back to it. So that is the navigator. And then comes the layout, but that we'll explain later. Basically now it's important that you understand what you're looking at, that we can create elements on the left side, we can change its settings on the top, or by going into the settings dialog box. We have important commands over here, the layer commands are over there. You can navigate your model in the navigator, have favorites if you need them, and trace and reference other kinds of drawings. So welcome to the course, and I'll see you in the next video.